Welcome to At a Glance Proposal Graphics, where we're going to learn to take complex information and turn it into clear, compelling, winning proposal graphics. Now, at the end of this presentation, I'm going to be giving you a link to download all my slides and more awesome stuff that you can use to help make proposal graphics at a glance. When we create a proposal graphic, if we realize that it's a conversation between two people, when I say two people, who do I mean? I mean that it's the author, and that's the person who makes the graphic, the content and or renders it. It could be a team effort. And the reviewer, the person who learns from the graphic. When I say it's a conversation between two people, what I find is that perspective of why am I sharing this from the author's point of view and why should I care from the reviewer's point of view is critical. It is foundational in order to come up with a graphic that is at a glance. Successful at a glance graphics take those 2 points of view into mind in order to create winning proposal graphics. Now, to do this, once we have that perspective in place, there are 2 phases. In each one of those phases, there are 3 steps. How I remember this is a little acronym I'm using for this. You can come up with your own acronym. I'm using gas cap. When I say gas cap, think of it like this. We're removing the gas cap from the reviewer's brain and filling up their mind with what our solution is and why we should win. And really, that's what they want to know as quickly and efficiently as possible. So we take that perspective of concept and render and gas cap, and we are able to make a successful at-a-glance graphic using that conversational point of view. So the first thing we need to know for the G in gas cap is what's our goal? When I say goal, I mean, why is the author sharing this information? Why are you sharing this information? That is what we're going to get after we're finished. There's a gentleman by the name of Andy Bounce, brilliant human being. He wrote a book called The Happiness Hypothesis, and then he said, in the book, he said, basically people don't buy your solution. They're buying the thing that they get after. For example, someone doesn't buy a drill to have a cool drill. They buy it to make holes or to screw something in or something like that more efficiently. When I say after for a proposal graphic, we're talking about things like maybe we want people to understand the schedule for our deliverables, or how our process mitigates risk, or how we identify coding errors quickly, or our solution at a high level. What is it? Why is our solution more better? Who knows? How to save money and time, or maybe what's our QC process? These are things that are critical to understand in order to move forward. Once we understand our goal, then we move to the next letter in the gas cap acronym, and it is A. Announce. We have to make an announcement. Think of the announcement as your title, your overview, your action caption, your bumper sticker. It essentially, in a nutshell, is a summary of what they're about ready to learn. And that summary needs to be something that appeals to everyone in your audience. For that reason, I break it up into 2 parts, and I use the way to remember this is I think of M&M, not the milk chocolate candy that melts in your mouth, not in your hands. What I mean is M&M, motivator and means. The motivator gives the reviewer a reason to care, and the means is how they're going to get that. I recommend having up to 3 motivators. And when I say motivators, I mean pain, gain, or fear. Those are the 3 things that motivate human beings. I like gain. I like benefits. So I recommend having no more than 3 benefits. So let's take an example such as make your job easier. That is a motivator to a reviewer or a decision maker or an evaluator. How would you do that? By what means? By using this new tool. If you notice, our motivator is a benefit. We can have up to 3 because we have different audiences. For example, you may have a strategic thinker and a tactical thinker. So you can have multiple benefits that appeal to multiple stakeholders or multiple reviewers at different levels. Now, your motivator can be implied, but be careful because sometimes we assume that the reviewer knows the benefit and they don't. I probably don't need to put the benefit of using a risk mitigation tool, but just in case, I may want to explicitly say it. So once we figure out our announcement, which has an M&M, our motivator, and a means, it's time to move to the next letter. The next one is going to be S in GASCAP. Spell it out. What I mean by spell it out is I mean you have to have proof, tangible, clear proof. If we say something, we need to prove something. So if we go back to our example of make your job easier by using this new tool, so we have our motivator, we have our means, they're super duper clear. What would the audience ask? What would the reviewer ask using this new tool? Well, what is the new tool? What's the new tool? And how does it make my job easier? We need to provide evidence or proof that we will achieve what we promised in that announcement, in that action caption, in that title, in whatever we call it. We would want to answer it as succinctly and clearly as possible. For example, we would say, oh, the new tool, it's right here in your ribbon. It's right here in your menu bar. Like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And automatically, when you press that, it automatically creates your reports when you do this. Oh, okay, now I believe that would make my job easier, and I see that it's a new tool in my menu. So we provide proof. We spell it out, make it clear. So once we have that information, that's concepting, kind of like discovery, figuring out what you want to say before you say it. Now we need to render it and turn it into a graphic. So this is the cap part, chunk it. What I mean by that is break it up into bite-sized digestible pieces. So let's say we have our proposal graphic, and that proposal graphic has a goal of adopting a new piece of software. The announcement is make your job easier by using the new tool, and we spell it out. How will it work for the client? How does the reviewer see it working? The new tool is called Auto Report, and it's a new button found in the main menu. It automatically generates your project reports. Once all tracking fields are completed and the project milestones are met, the reports are automatically emailed to all project stakeholders. Brilliant. So now I'm going to break it up. I'm just going to use a highlighter and pull out the most important pieces. All I'm doing is chunking or breaking up the most important information. So that's the C. The next thing I want to do is I want to move on to assembling it. So now I've chunked the information because we had a whole bunch of information. It was too much, too overwhelming. So I chunked it. Now I'm going to assemble it, the A in cap. I'm going to assemble it to tell a story. So let's go back to our example. We have our chunks and we get rid of everything else. Everything else isn't important. We just have these important, critical bits of information to assemble and tell our story. So this is what's left. So now we rearrange these pieces so that it has a narrative, so that it tells a story of that benefit happening due to the Auto Report tool. So that's the assembly method. The next thing I'm going to do, last step in the render process, is to picture it. I've got to visualize it. I've got to find a way to do it. We've got to figure out a graphic type to communicate this information. What do I mean? Well, there's lots of different graphic types out there. So many. It's dizzying. And the good news is, as part of your downloads, I gave you a graphic cheat sheet. We would choose that row and choose a graphic type to represent that information. For example, if the information is simple, we might want to choose from the yellow column. Maybe a Venn diagram, but it's too simple. Maybe a puzzle graphic, overused metaphor. If it's more complex, we might want to choose from the orange column. Might want to use a funnel graphic. I feel like that's been done to death. What about a pipe graphic? Ooh, closer. What's that? If you Google graphic cheat sheet, or if you go to billiondollargraphics.com, you can see examples of these graphics. But still, if you Google pipe graphic, I'm sure you'll see examples. And then you might say, close but no cigar. And then, of course, spiral graphic. You'd look at that up and you say, son of a gun, that's exactly what I need. So this saves you a whole bunch of time. So let's take a look at an example. So we had our make your job easier using this new tool, graphic. This is something we came up with. Using our graphic cheat sheet, this is essentially a process or flow, and there's a whole bunch of different ways we could do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my handy dandy pen tool, and I'm going to use a road graphic. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to show you how easy it is. The first thing you want to do is you want to sketch it out. Do a real rough sketch. So at the very end, we're going to have a goal. That's the end of it. So down the middle, you got this is a road. And so imagine that this step is number 1. So this is step number 1. This is step number 2, step number 3, step number 4, and step number 5. So step number 5 would obviously go here. Step number 1 would obviously go here. And step number 2 would go here, and so forth and so on. So if you look at this, what we're doing is we're doing a really rough concept sketch of where the steps might go should we decide to make this a road graphic. That's it. That's how you picture it. So you figure out the graphic type, you sketch it out. If you dig on it, you move forward to the next step in the process. Now, making the graphic, that's a challenge. So I'm going to show you how to do it yourself, but first I'm going to show you the best practice. So the best practice is to actually have someone do it for you. Someone who's more skilled and experienced than you are. They're going to do it better, faster, cheaper. The 3 avenues that you can choose from to have someone do it for you is going to be in-house designers if you have a team of in-house designers, and you want to make sure that they're experienced with bid and proposal and tender and any other grant graphics. There is a separate skill set that's required in order to do good things like that. Like a typical graphic designer might not know how to make something compliant. The other way is to go with a graphics firm. Now, shameless plug, I recommend us because we've been doing it for almost 30 years. We're kind of good at what we do. We have definitely helped billions and billions of dollars be won for our customers. And of course, freelance designers. All of this in mind, the most important factor is that they must be experienced in bid and proposals. Just because they're a graphic designer doesn't mean they're going to get you a winning at-a-glance graphic. Keep that in mind. For example, someone that knows what they're doing will be able to tell you, like, hey, what style of graphic do you want? Do you want something traditional? Or do you want something that's going to be in the flat style? Now, back in the day, if you could make something that was photorealistic or 3D, which is also called skeuomorphism, which means it kind of looks like reality, you were the bee's knees. You were amazing. And then came the advent of the smartphone. Now, the smartphone had a much smaller user interface, so anything with graphic embellishment like textures and gradients and drop shadows and highlights, it became too much when you shrink it down to 8 pixels by 8 pixels. So instead, things became simplified. That gave birth to the flat style. Now, unfortunately, in 2016, Google said, the flat style is awesome, but sometimes we need skeuomorphic elements. We need 3D sometimes. So they developed something called the material style. Now, the material style is essentially taking the best of the traditional style and the best of the flat style and combining it to create something that's more appealing. So, for example, you may have the 3D from the traditional style, but without the graphic embellishment, no drop shadows, textures, and so forth. What I found is that people over 40 years old typically dig on traditional style. Not always, but typically, because they grew up with it. They said, oh man, if you can make that on the computer, you are incredible. And then people under 40 typically dig on the flat style because they grew up with it. They said, wow, that looks modern and innovative. But what happens if you have a mixed audience? Well, that's where the material style comes into play because it's appealing to anybody who's 1 year old to 120 years old. You're going to like the material style because it's the best of both. And that style's here for a long time, my friends. So my recommendation is material style. Now, an experienced graphic designer could tell you that. An inexperienced graphic designer, someone that doesn't know bids and proposals, wouldn't know to tell you that. They would just say, I'm a designer, trust me. That is not an answer I need to hear. So here's some examples. This is a skeuomorphic design. Here we see a lot of graphic embellishment. Here we have a flat design, as simple as humanly possible. And here we have material design. 3D when you need it, 2D when you don't, no unnecessary graphic embellishment, most likely to appeal to the broadest audience. And the good news is you can make this yourself. Let's say, hey, Mike, I'm sorry, my friend, I can't use graphic designers. No worries. You could do this yourself. Now, it will take more time than a designer would take, and it won't likely be as good, but there are some tools to help you get there. So if we look at this graphic, at its core, it's basic shapes in PowerPoint. So these are shapes in PowerPoint. If you look, we have that shape appear here, we have that shape appear here, we have that shape appear here. That's it. It's a basic shape. And if we look at the database here, we look at this, that is basically this shape here. These are just text boxes. What this is right here, this is an arrow. So if I'm looking at this as an arrow, real basic. If you break this down, it's basic shapes. And other elements, such as the funnel, can be done if you know how. Part of your downloads are step-by-step instructions on how to make a funnel from scratch. So there are ways for you to do it. I'm giving it to you. Once you do it once or twice, you'll get the hang of it, and you'll be able to make anything that your heart desires. There's also other low-cost and free resources out there, such as Pexels and Pixabay. Fantastic websites for creating graphic oral presentations or oral proposals. And this third thing, so we have Pexels, we have Pixabay, and the other tool that I use is the Noun Project. It's great for finding icons and symbols. Pexels and Pixabay is free. The Noun Project is either $2 an icon, I think it is, and they have raised the price a little bit, or $40 a year for unlimited access. Wonderful for getting symbols and icons. And then the last tool is Build-A-Graphic. It's at buildagraphic.com, and it is the tool of choice that I use for making proposal graphics, and I'll show you what I mean. So let me bring this up. It is a PowerPoint add-in. What do I mean by that? Well, it's software that you download, and it adds to PowerPoint's ribbon. If you see up here, it's added to the ribbon. So the way Build-A-Graphic works, it either helps you build your own graphic from scratch, or it has pre-built graphics. The choice is completely up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my text. This is text that I typed in Word and brought into PowerPoint, or I typed it into PowerPoint. It doesn't matter. This is my narrative. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Build-A-Graphic tab, and I'm going to chunk the text by sentence, bullet, or paragraph. I'm going to chunk it by paragraph. And it is, remember gas cap, it is the thing I was telling you about. We've chunked the information and we're going to reassemble it to tell a story. So what Build-A-Graphic does is it analyzes all the keywords and phrases on your slide and then gives you a visual representation of those keywords and phrases. So 3-tier escalation standard operating procedure. I go to insert graphic. I go to 3 because I want to show the concept of 3. And we see so many different ways that we could show the concept of 3. So I'm going to drop this in there because I think this is a good way of showing escalation and a set of 3. I read the next piece of text and it reads, we have a 3-tiered help desk solution for computer issues and problems. Our SOP escalates based on the complexity of the issue. Now, it is my opinion that this graphic already communicates that. So I'm going to chuck it. I don't need it. Gone. So I'm going to move this here. And now I'm going to shrink the text down so that I can co-locate it with the appropriate steps. So I'm just going to shrink my text down to anything that I want. Now, if you are working with proposals that have font requirements, the secret is to create the graphic in PowerPoint at the exact same size it's going to be in Word. So if you have a document that's 8.5 inches by 11 inches, then you want to make sure that you include the margins, which would be somewhere around 1 inch. You include those margins and you create a graphic that is 6.5 inches wide, and then export it or copy paste it into Word. So we have tier 1 issues are resolved automatically. So now I'm going to go to the Build-A-Graphic tab. I'm going to go to Insert Graphic, and I'm going to look for the word automatically, see what pops up. I like that graphic. I can modify the graphic in any way that I want because it's vector-based. I can, let's say, I can make it look like a blueprint by giving it a blue outline. I'm going to give it a blue outline. I'm going to give it a white fill, and it suddenly looks like a blueprint. So I can do whatever I want to it, if anything at all, and I simply scale it down and co-locate it on the appropriate step. Tier 2 issues are resolved by remote IT service technician. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to go down here to technician, see what pops up. No. Oh, I like this one. Click here. scale this down, place her right here. I'm going to go to tier 3 issues are resolved by an IT service mechanic. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to see what pops up for mechanic. I don't like those. I don't like those. Oh, I like this one. Click here. And I'm going to shrink this person down and co-locate it on the step. So this is how I'm able to create graphics pretty easily with the Builder Graphic tool. Again, I can export it. This tool is $99 a year. It's a subscription because they keep adding more graphics over time. And I had a hand in creating it because there was nothing like this out there. And so I worked with my fellow Microsoft MVPs to create something that we would want to put into everybody's hands that might help them. So for what it's worth, hopefully it helps you as much as it helps us do our jobs. Alrighty, so that's Builder Graphic. Always hire a designer that knows what they're doing because they're going to do it better, faster, cheaper. But if you have to do it yourself, think about using the Noun project, using Pexels or Pixabay, and then of course using Builder Graphic. Those are the tools that I use to make my job easier. So when we're coming to an end here, so that's the way we either get somebody else to render it, picture it. But remember GasCap. In order to develop successful at-a-glance graphics. And oh, by the way, if you look at this graphic, it is made up of basic shapes. If we look at this, we just have a whole bunch of circles, basic shapes. Right here we have a bunch of lines. That's all we're doing. Right here we have an arch or a curve. That's all this is. All this is a text box. These graphics I downloaded from either Builder Graphic or the Noun project, these little icons. So everything you see was made in PowerPoint very easily with the tools that I recommended. Now, I promised you that we would have a download for the slides and any additional support materials. Here it is. Be sure you type in .zip because if you don't type in .zip, it won't work. So again, this is the URL, but you need to type in .zip, and it is case sensitive. Everything is case sensitive, so make sure it is capitalized. Do reach out to me if you have any questions. If you say, hey, Mike, my biggest takeaway was this. That was an awesome session. Thank you very much. Please reach out to me. Say, and follow me on Twitter if you don't already, because I share awesome stuff from really smart people, way smarter than I am. I am happy to help you kick more butt and take names. Me and my company, we help people win proposals with graphics and strategies and solutioning sessions along with training. It is my pleasure to help you do the same thing. I hope you have an incredible week, and just know that I'm always here to help you. Enjoy, be safe, and have a blast. Bye-bye.